I'm trying this again. I did a little stream earlier today. If you saw, I think there was like one person who viewed. So I always guess that Twitch just gives you like that one viewer, so you think, oh, someone's watching, but you never know. But anyway, if you are my one viewer, uh, I'm thankful that you've been watching, and I hope that this is better quality. I did a lot of the testing now, so I think the issue I was having was the sound. It was popping and crackling a lot in the first stream that I put out earlier today. So I did that stream. I didn't really check it. I just thought it'd be okay. Then I went to go listen to it after it posted. Then I was like, oh wow, the audio is terrible. So I'm pretty sure I corrected all those issues now. Figured out what was going wrong, and so, yeah, let's get into this. So, to explain the last video, if you didn't see it, if you did see it, sorry for the kind of repeat information. If you didn't see it, obviously, this works out for you with a better quality video. Uh, I haven't obviously been on Twitch for a while. I can't even remember last time I streamed something. I think I saw that it was like Ghost of Tsushima, which I haven't played in a long time. I just kind of got caught up with life, and also just didn't really know what I was doing with Twitch. I was going online. I was talking about mental health and psychology or whatever, some scriptures, and while I was playing video games, right, that was the idea. But there was a lack of planning and consistency to it, and so kind of recently was rethinking about the whole process, and I thought, you know what, let me try to do something a little more directed, a little more targeted, a little more purposeful, with a better schedule that's more consistent, so on and so forth. So if you see the schedule I posted on Twitch's website, it's going to be like 11 a.m. Monday through Friday, and then 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. I'm going to try really hard to stick to that schedule. And the 11 a.m. Is what I'm doing now. It's like 2:45 in the afternoon, but audio issues earlier. But the 11 a.m. is the session that I want to go on and just cover content, do some teaching, some subject matter that's relative to a certain theme that I'm going on. And today I'm going to introduce the theme I'm going to be working on for the next, I don't know, few streams, weeks, or however long it takes. Right? I haven't really planned that far ahead as to how long this will take. And then at 6 o'clock, what I want to do is I want to do the gaming sessions. And in the gaming sessions, I want to be able to game and then just kind of like uh, talk about whatever, and then hopefully interact more, answer questions or whatever might be along the way. I mean, I hope I do that in both sessions. But the 6 o'clock gaming is more, it's related to whatever I talked about earlier in that day, whatever thoughts I had after that, if someone commented or shared an idea or had a thought that they wanted to press or like an issue they had, and I can address it in the gaming session, and just game and interact and get to know people really that way. So that's my plan moving forward. Obviously, it's almost 3 p.m. here, so I got to get ready for the gaming session later. Hopefully, the sound issue has been resolved. Now, what exactly am I talking about? If you see the introduction, this is session one, introduction to emotionally healthy spirituality, and that speaks to me in a very special way because I didn't know that we, as believers, like, so I don't know if you're watching this, if you're a Christian or not, follower of Jesus. If you're not, I welcome you. Thank you for watching. In fact, I would love to hear your opinions about some of the things I have to share. But as far as like Christianity goes, growing up in my faith, I never really learned what it meant to be emotionally healthy. As a Christian, there was always like these expectations about behavior, right? Expectations about behavior and about the things you're supposed to be doing and things you're not supposed to be doing. Like you shouldn't be drinking or smoking or having sex before marriage, or some places that you can't dance, and all those opinions kind of differ. Can't men can't wear shorts and women can't wear pants and that kind of thing. It was always behavior driven, right? You got to go to church every Sunday, and so on and so forth. We got to pray every day and read your Bible. That's what the expectations usually were. There were very few discussions about what we were supposed to be emotionally. And certainly you'd read scripture and have information given to you about what's expected of you, but there was not a lot taught in terms of how do we accomplish the goal of being a mature person spiritually and emotionally as well, right? If the scriptures say you're supposed to be compassionate, it's not enough to just tell someone that. You have to explain what it means to be compassionate, right? I think that only makes sense. So, what I have here is a book by Peter Scazzaro and or Scazzaro and a workbook. Now, these are again sources that I used when I was doing my master's degrees in emotional healthy spirituality. Both versions here, the workbook and the textbook. I also have it on Kindle, so at some point I could try to share that here as my green screen tries to figure out, adjust from the book showing. But I'm going to go through this material here in during the course of these sessions, right? And I think it's going to give us a good pathway to follow in terms of what we need to talk about and what we need to discuss and what we need to learn, right? And then along the way, I'll come up with my own stuff, or uh, I'll interact with you all about what you want to talk about, what you have to say about it. Now, by way of introduction, what I wanted to do, and to kind of set the target. Again, what's the goal here, though? What is the goal for what I'm doing? And that is to achieve adulthood according to what Paul calls and refers to adulthood as. So, I'd like to read from Ephesians chapter 4, and so you see I have that on the screen uh, there with you, so you can see that. And this is Ephesians chapter 4, excuse me, Ephesians chapter 4 and verse 13. Now, this just keeps going back up and back to where I was not really scrolling, so I'm going to do this real quick. Back in the switch. Okay, there we go. I can see it now. Okay, so starting verse 11. He gave himself some to be emissaries, some as prophets, some as proclaimers of the good news, and some as shepherds and teachers, to equip the Kedoshim for the work of the service, for building up the body of Messiah. This will continue until we all come to the unity of the faith and of the knowledge of Ben Elohim, to mature adulthood, to the measure of the stature of Messiah's fullness. Now, real quick, I know some of the language might be different for you all. This is the Tree of Life version that I'm reading from. It's a messianic version. In other words, just a version translated by Jewish people who have converted into Christianity, followed Yeshua's ways. And one of the ways they hold on to their identity and their past is to use some of the Hebrew terms that they have instead of translating it into English. And so Kedoshim is a phrase for the priesthood. So to equip the priesthood for the work of the service of the building of Messiah, and then and Ben Elohim means the Son of God, right? Reference to Jesus. So anyway, so in this passage, Paul is talking about a very important concept, and that's maturity. And he's talking about how the body needs to catch up with the head. The body, we are the body, and the head is Jesus, right? And so this is like a really silly example, but I used to wonder what it was like for Jesus to be a baby and to be God, right? Like, was he fully God already? So like fully aware, like I am the Son of God. I know I can do. I can walk on water. I can heal the blind. I can do whatever. I'm God, right? But I'm just kind of stuck. I can't do anything yet because I'm in this body. I got to wait for this body to grow up. I got to wait for this body to mature, right? Like an infant, the human part of his existence kind of limited the God part until it could mature and be old enough to play a role in what he was going to be doing. And that's just like my imagination, but I think it applies here. I think what Paul is trying to communicate is that as Christians, like the church, we are his body now, right? Like we're supposed to be the active part of his service in this world. But we're the kedoshim for the work of service of building up the body. So the gifts that we receive, like prophets and all this kind of stuff, and teachers, they're supposed to be for the building up of the body into service so that we can do what the head wants us to do, right? You can imagine like Jesus is there and he wants to do things, and he's just like, man, I want to do this with this arm over here, but I can't because it's not quite strong enough, or it hasn't quite been built up. And so I need the building up of the body to happen. And how's that going to happen? And I have to empower them, and that's why he's given us gifts and the abilities, as it says here in Ephesians. And so, kind of interesting concept, right? That the goal that we have in our gifts is for building each other up, and until we get strong enough, until we reach this stage where he calls mature adulthood. You can see there in verse 13. I have my mouse kind of uh, over there to the right of the Ben Elohim. And so the question there is like, what's mature adulthood? I made this point earlier. If we have somebody who is trying to say that they're an adult, and we usually the first thing we wonder ask is, how old are you? When I was growing up, 16 was the sign of adulthood, or at least was something to aspire to, because that's when you got your driver's license. When you got your driver's license, it's cool, but there's not much else you could do. Plus, you're pretty much in the control of your parents, right? Like they pay your insurance, gas, and so if they say you can't go somewhere, you can't go somewhere, yada yada yada, and you can't vote in an election. And hey, that happens when you're 18, and when I'm 18, I can move out, right? I've seen plenty of TV shows like, "Oh, I'm turning 18, I'm moving out," and that kind of stuff. And so 18 became the next benchmark for adulthood. But anyone who's I just turned 40, so I'm looking back on it like 18. I was not an adult. I was living on my own at the University of Florida, an apartment, had a credit card, I had to pay rent, so I had a lot of responsibilities, and I could vote, I could join the army, I could do a lot of things. I couldn't drink alcohol, right? Now I think tobacco is 21. I'm not sure. I know it works for cigars that way, but I'm not sure about cigarettes. But there's still restrictions, right? There's certain things that society still tells me, even though I'm doing a lot of things on my own, there's a lot of things society's telling me I can't do yet either. Right? I mean, I had to get a degree, right, to get a job in my field or whatever. And so, in that sense, I wasn't an adult either. And so, I was still relying on people back home. I was still relying on someone to send me some gas money once in a while because I wasn't really working. I was in school, right? And take out loans. You just get money support from your family if you have that opportunity. And so 18 wasn't it. 21 does sound like the right time, like now that thing's restricted, right? Uh at least until you try to rent a car. When you rent a car, you got to be 25. So then you're wondering, like, I guess 25 is my my moment of becoming an adult, when I can actually rent a car on my own. Like there's nothing else that I can't do, right? No. It's hard to do it by age. Instead, what we need to see are benchmarks related to behavior and emotions and thinking patterns and so on and so forth, right? Like someone who's mature isn't impulsive anymore. Impulsivity is a problem for people who struggle uh, to make mature decisions. You're impulsive, and you go and drink that, and you eat this, and you have sex with this person, and you do that and do the other. Those kinds of decisions will show someone to not be a very mature person, and that's part of the reason why you got to wait till you're 25. I mean, in psychology, we're always trying to figure out the brain science and when the brain is actually fully formed and well enough to make decisions on its own. And the age, people used to think it was 18, and that's why certain things are opened up at 18. And people then used to think it was 21, which is why alcohol comes into play there. And then it got pushed a little further back to like 27, 28. I think rental car companies put it at 25. It's probably pretty smart when you're thinking about terms of maturity and decision making, right? You don't want someone renting a car who's going to impulsively just not think about it and go 150 miles an hour or whatever and on the highway and be irresponsible with the vehicle that they've loaned them, right? So maturity has more to do with those kinds of benchmarks than it does have to do with age. And for the believer, the benchmarks are set by Jesus, and so that's what he says here in Ephesians chapter 4, verse 13. It says that this that the to obtain mature adulthood to the stature of Messiah's fullness. And so what he's saying there is, kind of imagine Jesus at this point where he's fulfilled everything. He's at the fullness of who he is. Like he's mature physically. Remember, imagine if he was born but fully aware, right, that he was God, and so he had to wait for his body to grow up. So, at what point was his body ready to do what his mind was able to do, right? Like a baby could want to walk at 6 months old, but they may not be ready to do that for another couple months, at least maybe another half a year, maybe sometimes another full year, right? Depends on how strong their body is and the ability to hold up their heads and their necks. Jesus, we know he started his ministry at 30. Why? I don't know, but that's when he was ready. That's when he was ready. And what was he ready? What was, or how do we know he was ready? And what did ready look like? I should say, what does ready look like? Well, it was like the ultimate levels of emotional maturity and psychological maturity. His work ethic was up there. He knew exactly what his purpose was. Like there was a lot of stuff that had been figured out. I don't know what that looked like. We don't have a lot of accounts of his childhood and growing up. We have a few things. We see when he was age 12 actually that he was actually, pretty smart and probably ready to start some major stuff, but he was young. He was 12, and then presumably his father died shortly after that, and he had to, as the eldest son, he would have had to taken over the role of providing in his home, and so that would delay, right? But it seemed like that was the moment. He turned 30, he had everything together, and he was able to go out and do the thing. And it's that concept, though, of what it means to be emotionally mature that I want to tackle with these streams. And that's why the resources we're looking at by Peter Scazzaro are going to be helpful because I think, and he explains it in the intro, he talks about how traditionally churches go with this route. You meet Jesus, you attend church, and then you connect, right? And this is the path towards maturity. So that you meet Jesus, you attend church, you connect within the church, right? You have small groups, you have Bible studies, you have prayer meetings, you have youth groups, whatever. You connect, you make friends within the church. And then you serve. So with that group or with the groups of people, you go out and you serve the community, you serve the poor, you serve the homeless. In Miami here, we've got some great programs to help victims of human trafficking, prevalent issue here in South Florida. And so you can go out there and you can serve. And then finally you give, right? You give your money, give your time, whatever. But that's traditionally how churches go. And Scazzaro explains that, the path of maturity has usually been uh, meet Jesus, go to church, connect with other believers, serve with other believers, give, and then you make your impact onto the world. The way that Scazzaro goes is he starts with meeting Jesus, then you attend church, and then if I could show the image, I'm not prepared for it, but there's he has an image there where it's an iceberg, and the tip of the iceberg could be considered the connect, serve, and give that a lot of other churches focus on. The bottom part of the iceberg, the part that's below the water, right, the part that's hidden but bigger, is what he calls emotionally healthy spirituality. And it's the contents of his writing, right? Content is his writing, and so he feels like once you get that, you really transform as a Christian, transform as a person into the image of Christ and this maturity and this fullness that he's talking about here in that Paul is talking about here in Ephesians chapter 4, that you transform to the image you're supposed to be, and then you have your impact on the world. Okay. And I got to say, like, I studied this stuff back in 2011, 2012 when I was working on my master's degree. And I remember it really helped me to mature in a lot of different ways, but I'm not perfect. And we're all going to start at different levels in this journey. Wherever you're at, it's fine. It's just, I'm just glad that we're doing this together. Right? I'm just glad we're doing this together. Now, here's hoping the audio was good for this stream and presentable. And I'll go ahead and post this on YouTube. And then at 6 o'clock, I'll be jumping on to Twitch to stream something from PlayStation. I've just been playing around. I've been playing the Burning Shores DLC for Horizon, so maybe I'll just get back on that, fly around rebel camps, that kind of thing, and then just I'll just do some reading and yeah, contribute more to this discussion. Anyway, thanks for watching, and looking forward to continuing this on.